Hi everyone, I'm Whitney and I post a new tutorial every single Wednesday to help sewers of all skill levels learn new projects and techniques. Today I'm going to be showing how to make a t-shirt quilt using all those old favorite t-shirts that you have lying around. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that red subscribe button down below so you don't miss out on any of my future how-tos. So for a t-shirt quilt, you will need a couple of different things. The first obviously being your t-shirts, and the amount of t-shirts you need depends on the size of quilt that you want when it is completed, as well as the size of the shirts you'll be using. You will also need some sort of stabilizer. I prefer to use fusible interfacing. That is the Pellon P44F. It's just a really lightweight fusible interfacing, and it gives the t-shirts just enough structure and support that they won't be stretching while you're trying to work with them. Start by measuring all the shirts so you can make a plan. This is the time to decide how you'll be cutting up your shirts. You can either cut all of them into the exact same size, say like a 12 by 12 inch square, and that is good if you have a lot of designs that are very similarly sized, like school shirts or something that tend to have a similar kind of logo every year. Or you can cut them all in different sizes if you have a whole assortment of t-shirts from different sources like I was working with in this video. If you cut your pieces in all the same size, then you simply have to figure out how many rows and columns you want in your quilt to be the size that you want it to be. If you're working with all different sizes, you have to do a little more figuring. I decided to trim my shirts down. I wanted them to finish about 1 inch outside of the printed design on the shirt. By doing my shirts this way instead of cutting them all in a uniform size, I would have had to have cut all of them to a very large size because some of the shirts had very large graphics. So this would have meant the ones with smaller graphics would have had a lot of blank t-shirt space around them, and I feel like that is just kind of a wasted space on a t-shirt quilt, and your eye kind of notices those, and it takes away from all of the amazing other shirts that are in the quilt. So if you decide to cut your shirts in various sizes, you have two options really. You can either improv piece it, which is where you go ahead and just cut all your shirts to the size that looks right for them, and then you take them to your sewing machine without a real big plan, and you kind of just start piecing them together into sections and until you have a finished quilt. And you may have to do this in a few different sections and add in some blank shirt parts to fill out. Like if you have two columns that aren't quite even, you might have to add a little blank space from another t-shirt to get it to the right size. Or you can go ahead and kind of make a layout ahead of time, and this is what I did. I took all of the measurements from the shirts and just sat down with some graph paper and just kind of sketched out how they all fit together best. So I did this by matching up similarly sized shirts. So for instance, I had a couple of shirts that were both about 14 inches was how wide I wanted to cut them. So I stacked those on top of each other, so 14 inch wide, 14 inches wide. And so then those measured about 21 inches tall. So then I needed two of the other shirts that would measure about 21 inches tall when they were sewn together to go next to that to fit together to create one unit. And so this did take a little bit of figuring. I had to do it a couple times before I got it to all work out, and you know, it may not work out exactly for everyone, and you still may have to end up adding some extra material, but you can go ahead and have a game plan of sorts so that you know what's going to be sewn to what before you get to your sewing machine. And the scraps that I'm talking about that you may have to add in to fill out the extra space are just other parts of the t-shirt, like the back or the sleeves or something, that you go ahead and interface and everything like the fronts, just to have the extra material. So after I had my layout planned out, I got to work. So start by cutting your shirts at least an inch or two larger on each side than you want them to be when they're completed. This is just a quick breakdown of the shirt to get to the part that is needed. I find it easiest to cut up each side of the shirt all the way to the hem of the sleeves, lay the shirt open, and use a rotary cutter and ruler to cut the graphic out larger than I need it to be. Lay the interfacing out with the t-shirt and trim it to approximately the same size. You will end up with some oddly sized scraps of interfacing, but you can still use them on bigger shirts, just slightly overlap the scraps before fusing. Lay your shirt graphic side down on your ironing surface, then the interfacing textured side down on top. Carefully fuse the two together. You never want to place your iron on the graphics of your shirt because it can damage them. And do not move your iron around while it is against the interfacing. Set it in one spot, wait a few seconds, lift it up, and set it right next to where it was before. Repeat until the entire piece is fused down and move on to the next shirt. This is a great time to catch up on a TV show or watch an old favorite because it's not hard, but it can take a while to do. I took my portable ironing table that I DIY'd in an old tutorial into the living room and watched reruns of Numbers until I was done. After all the pieces are interfaced, it's time to cut them down to the exact sizes you need. I like to use 2 rulers for this to make it easier. The reason you don't want to cut them to the correct size in the first place is because they can stretch, curl, etc. while you're working with them and moving them around and getting them interfaced. So you will get a more accurate and better looking finished quilt if you trim them down to size afterwards. Like I mentioned earlier, I pre-planned my layout and went through and color-coded the sketch so it was easier to see what sections needed to be pieced together to form units. I have 5 different units that will be pieced together, then those will be combined to make the entire quilt top. The first section I'm working on is the pink one at the top. There are 3 shirts in that unit, 2 shorter and 1 tall. So I sewed the 2 shorter ones together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Press the seam from the interfaced side. Then sew that piece to the 3rd shirt in the section. This gives me 1 completed unit. I'm using a 1/4 inch seam allowance because it is what is typically used for quilting, but you can use a 1/2 inch seam allowance if you are more comfortable with that. Repeat until each unit or row, if you are using the same size shirts, is sewn together. Here are all of my pieced units. At this point, I simply combine them in the same way to get a completed quilt top. After your quilt top is completed, you have a couple of different options. The first is to complete it like you would a regular quilt. So you add a backing and a batting, you baste it together, you quilt it, trim it up, and then add a binding. So that's one option. Or you can do what I chose to do, which is a much simpler option in my opinion, and that is to put another fabric with the quilt top right sides together and then sew around the outer edge, leaving an opening that you turn it through, turn it right sides out, top stitch all the way around the outer edge. So it's more like finishing like a blanket or something. And then you can also add some hand quilting or hand tacking to help attach the quilt top to the backing in several different spots. And for those backings, for either option, you can either use yardage or you can interface the backs of the t-shirts that were left over and piece those together until it's large enough to use for the quilt backing. I hope you got a lot of good info and ideas from this video. Now there are of course tons and tons of ways you can make a t-shirt quilt. You can add regular fabric as well to it and add borders or other piece designs into it, but those are getting into more of an intermediate level, and if you're a beginner to t-shirt quilts, I recommend doing a fairly basic one for your first one just to get a good feel for the project, and then if you want to, you can tackle more intricate intermediate level stuff the next time. So I made this quilt for Jeremiah, and I still have all of my shirts from elementary school, middle school, high school, and college. So I want to make a t-shirt quilt for myself as well sometime in the future, and that is going to give me a lot of t-shirt scraps. So I would love to know in the comments below what you think I should do with all these leftover t-shirt parts, because there are a lot of them and I don't want them to just go to waste. I'm gonna have some other memory type sewing projects linked right over here to the side for you to check out. And don't forget, if you want to be notified about all of my new tutorials that I post, make sure you're subscribed by clicking my picture right down there. And also go ahead and click that bell next to the subscription button so that you actually get a notification about the video. And until next time, happy sewing!